Hello and welcome viewers. I'm Pia and you're watching NewsX World, and here are the headlines this hour. The Israeli military has identified a body handed over from Gaza as Israeli-Argentinian Lior Rudef. Israel now awaits bodies of 5 slain hostages held in the Gaza Strip. In exchange, Israel has returned 15 Palestinian bodies. Israel has conducted fresh strikes on Lebanon, claiming to target Hezbollah and accusing the group of rearming. The European Union has condemned the strikes and has asked Israel to respect the ceasefire deal inked last year. 3 Ukrainian drones have struck an electricity substation in the Vologda region, marking one of Kiev's deepest strikes into Russian territory till date. This comes after Russia's overnight barrage on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Third round of peace talks between Pakistan and Afghanistan have ended without any agreement on tackling cross-border terrorism. Both sides are now trading blame for the collapse of negotiations. The Taliban government has accused Pakistan of adopting an irresponsible and uncooperative stance. US airlines and travelers slogged through a second day of flight cuts across the country amid the US government shutdown. The Federal Aviation Administration instructed airlines to cut 4% of flights at 40 major airports. Iran's embassy in Mexico has rejected US and Israeli claims that it planned to assassinate Israel's ambassador in Mexico City. Tehran has called the allegations a big lie aimed at damaging relations between Iran and Mexico. The US district judge has ruled that President Donald Trump illegally deployed National Guard troops to Portland to suppress protests. The decision bars future use of military force in US cities to police civil unrest. Donald Trump has stated that no American official will attend this year's G20 summit in South Africa, claiming that white farmers are facing genocide. Pretoria, meanwhile, has rejected the allegations, calling it false and a dangerous distortion of reality. All right, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. What's happening in Europe? Russia now says that 3 Ukrainian drones struck an electricity substation in the Vologda region, which is nearly 1,900 kilometers from Ukraine. This marks one of Kiev's deepest strikes into Russian territory till date. According to the regional governor, Georgy Filimonov, the attack caused significant damage to the substation, although the power supplies remain unaffected. According to reports, in Saratov, which is located further south, 2 people were injured when another drone hit a residential building. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry claims that it downed 83 drones overnight, mostly over border regions. Strikes this far north are rare, which signals Ukraine's growing long-range drone capability amidst the continuing war. This is the latest that we are tracking. Remember, earlier we had reported that Russia had in fact launched a barrage of strikes against Ukrainians. It had struck energy infrastructure. It had launched 450 drones and 45 missiles overnight, to be very specific. And now we're learning that Ukraine has in turn conducted this particular strike nearly 1,900 kilometers into Russian territory. With us on the broadcast is Julia Kazdobina, Senior Fellow of Ukrainian Prism, joining us from Krakow in Poland. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. There's been a lot that's been going on the front lines. But speaking of these drone strikes that Ukraine is carrying out, we're seeing a considerable success as far as these are concerned. Striking 1,900 kilometers into Russian territory is no mean feat. It, of course, indicates not just Ukraine's growing long-range drone capability, also the failure of Russian systems to have identified these drones in the first place. What do you make of how Ukraine is going about conducting these precision strikes deep into Russian territory and the strategy of targeting these electric substations?
Well, you know, Russia usually in the previous wars, when the air component was not as prominent, Russia actually benefited from having such a huge territory because it had the strategic depth. And now that it's possible to use airspace as efficiently with drone and missile strikes, Ukraine is taking advantage of this because it's very, very difficult for Russia to cover its entire territory with air defenses, and especially with defenses against drones, because this is a new sort of weapon, and Russia most likely was not prepared to fight back when Ukraine is developing its long-range capabilities. And so, I mean, Ukraine would much rather prefer to stop fighting and to stop because it's absolutely useless destruction. But on the other hand, we cannot, because Russia, with all the efforts of the US president to stop the war, Russia refuses to do this, and then does not refuse, doesn't from its maximalist claims. So Ukraine is trying to take the war to the Russian territory to make sure that Russian population feels it, because so far President Putin has been able to isolate the population for the large part from this. So Ukraine is making sure that the Russian population feels it, and the Russian population starts telling President Putin that it's time to stop the war.
Indeed, but Russia does have extensive electronic warfare capabilities itself. Then this strike, what is it an indication of as far as the Ukrainian capability to sort of evade jamming and GPS spoofing is concerned?
Well, I'm not a technical specialist, but from what I understand, Ukraine is developing its capabilities, and Ukraine does have a pretty strong engineering base that remained from the Soviet Union, and actually a lot of the former Soviet weapons, they were made in the Ukrainian territory, so we have a pretty good engineering base, and Ukraine has been developing it since the very start of the war. I mean, we were not given too many Western weapons, and so we had to adapt to the situation as much as we can, and that's what's happening. And I'm sure that Ukrainian engineers are skilled enough and educated enough to develop countermeasures to Russian capabilities in electronic warfare.
Indeed, I'd like to digress a little bit over here. We've seen a meeting between Donald Trump and Viktor Orban. Now, Trump has given some sort of relief to Hungary. It has exempted Hungary from Russian oil and gas sanctions for 1 year. We do know that Budapest has been at odds with Brussels over this for quite a while now. Hungary has been blocking several EU proposals over the years, ever since this war broke out, for funding to Ukraine as well. There was a plan to use frozen Russian assets for quite a while, although there was very little headway being made because of Orban's insistence that it does not go ahead. How are the Ukrainians now viewing Donald Trump's stance?
Well, Ukrainians understand that Donald Trump is not a pro-Ukrainian politician. He's a pro-American politician. So, and he is supportive of Viktor Orban because they have some sort of a political affinity. And so, I mean, it's from the Ukrainian standpoint, of course, Donald Trump's decision is detrimental. But on the other hand, we see that Hungary is moving in the direction of getting rid of the Russian energy. So hopefully, I mean, it's definitely going to hurt Ukraine's interests in the short term, especially. I mean, but hopefully in the long term, Hungary will end up moving into the right direction.
All right, ma'am. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time and sharing your analysis with us. With that, viewers, we're tracking more news coming in, this time from within Russia. We're learning that Russian President Vladimir Putin has carried out a reshuffle in his defense leadership. According to Kremlin, Deputy Defense Minister Andrei Bulyga has now been appointed as Deputy Secretary of Russia's Security Council, which is a body that plays a crucial role in shaping national security and defense policy. Meanwhile, General Alexander Sanchik has replaced Bulyga and has been named the country's new Deputy Defense Minister, who previously commanded Russia's southern group of forces. The move comes as Moscow continues to strengthen its top military and security ranks amid tensions with the West and the war in Ukraine. More news coming in. We're now learning that NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has stated that the alliance's nuclear deterrence remains the perfect guarantee of security. He has stated that NATO will focus more on its nuclear capabilities in order to deter potential adversary. Rutte has in fact stressed upon the need to help citizens understand nuclear deterrence and has stated that there is no reason to panic even amidst dangerous rhetoric. He's added that NATO's nuclear force must remain credible, reliable and effective. He's warned in fact that a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. In fact, commenting on the steadfast noon drills, Rutte stated that they sent a clear signal that NATO will defend its partners against all threats. Meanwhile, in Russia, President Putin has ordered authorities to study the possibility of nuclear tests without directing them to begin. Remember, earlier, US President Donald Trump had announced that the Pentagon will resume nuclear testing, citing other countries already conducting such tests. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Mohammed Osman, international relations expert, joining us from Cairo. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. I've of course referred to the announcement that was made, a very lengthy social media post on Truth Social that Donald Trump had put out. He was of course referring to the Burevestnik missile delivery systems test that Russia had carried out. In fact, the delivery systems are different from the warheads, and now there's a lot of concern with Trump indicating that explosive tests might be conducted in the United States after a 33-year pause. And Putin also coming out and stating that Russia will do something similar and respond in an equal measure if the United States goes ahead. In your assessment, are all of these statements that are coming in just verbal indications and posturing, or does it then threaten to revive a nuclear arms race?
Thank you for having me, Pia. Greetings to you and to your audience. Unfortunately, Pia, we are in the midst of a new nuclear arms race. I think it is very safe to assume that, because most of the arms control regimes or treaties that were in place between the United States and Russia have expired. The only treaty that is left is the New START treaty, which will expire in 2026, and it doesn't seem that the United States and Russia have been able so far to conduct any serious negotiations to prolong this agreement, which deals with the strategic nuclear weapons, or even coming up with a new agreement. So it seems that they have reached some sort of an impasse. There are reports that now the United States, Russia, who both own about 90% of the world's nuclear weapons, are actively producing weapons, and China is reportedly as well increasing its nuclear arsenal. It is reported that they seek to reach about 1,000 nuclear warheads in their stockpiles by the end of 2023. So it seems that we are in the midst of a nuclear race, a nuclear arms race of some sort. And of course, during a nuclear arms race since 2022, we have seen this very concerning trend of nuclear saber rattling by the different powers. We have seen Russia threaten to use its nuclear arsenal in case the Western powers cross certain red lines while they're supporting Ukraine in its war with Russia. We have seen the United States under Trump vowing to increase America's nuclear potential and to even carry out nuclear tests, something that the United States has not done, as you have pointed out very clearly, since 1992. And now Russia is responding to President Trump's announcement by saying, President Putin said that Russia will respond in turn and will carry out nuclear weapon tests. The last nuclear weapon test carried out by Russia was not even by Russia. It was by the Soviet Union back in 1990. Both countries combined have conducted about almost 2,000 tests in their history, which have caused a great impact on the planet's well-being, and also now with a continuation of these nuclear tests will pose a new challenge for global security, and it will encourage other nuclear powers like China, like India, like Pakistan, even North Korea, to take a very similar course of action if the U.S. and Russia descend into this exchange of nuclear tests once more.
Absolutely. Interestingly, we'd seen a reaction coming in from China just a while back. China has in fact emphasized upon its no first use policy, again stating that it's a deterrent. But what do you make of the ramp up that China has been doing so far? Because speaking of the tests itself, we've only seen one country test out nuclear warheads, weapons in 21st century, that is North Korea. So I wanted to understand from you, is what Beijing is doing something that has sparked this, or was it the Russian tests of the delivery system something that could have sparked Donald Trump to come out and make those statements?
I think it's a combination of many things. Of course, the testing of the delivery systems, but that is not something new. The testing of ICBMs by Russia was something that has been done repeatedly over the past few years. North Korea did the same thing, and the U.S. itself, just a few days ago, tested a nuclear capable weapon delivery system, basically. So no one is carrying nuclear tests anymore, except for in the 21st century, it was only North Korea that conducted an actual nuclear explosion as a test, and that was even back in 2006, about 19 years ago. So now the idea that major powers, nuclear powers with massive arsenals, like Russia, like the US, or even China might carry out tests is very concerning. China has been historically one of the countries that it is the only nuclear country that has an announced doctrine of no first use policy, and China has always underplayed its nuclear deterrent. Traditionally and historically, they never really wanted to boost their nuclear weapons or their nuclear arsenal in their foreign policy. However, this has been changing lately, no matter how China tries to conceal it now with its statements, because we have seen, if you remember, this past September, Pia, the huge military parade, annual parade, China held in celebration of its victory over Japan in World War II. And it was really interesting to see, for the first time, to my knowledge, China parading its means of delivery, its nuclear trinity, basically, in the parade, which was something that was unprecedented. And there are verified reports that China is expanding its nuclear arsenal, and this is understandable, of course, because China is surrounded by several nuclear weapon states. On its land borders only, Russia, Pakistan, and India have massive nuclear arsenals, and it is in a rivalry, a geopolitical rivalry with the United States, which of course possesses the second largest nuclear arsenal in the world. And the U.S. may even used to deploy nuclear weapons in countries like South Korea and Japan, and they might do that again under nuclear sharing if they see it fit. So that's why China wants to enhance its nuclear deterrence. So now we have NATO speaking about nuclear deterrence, Russia speaking about nuclear deterrence, China speaking about nuclear deterrence. It's very clear, Pia, that the world has reached a very, very dangerous point at this point. And in the Cold War, if you remember, there was a massive proliferation and production of nuclear weapons. They were in the tens of thousands.
Yes.
And then the world achieved a breakthrough after the Cold War by degrading and decreasing the amounts of stockpiles. However, unfortunately, this trend has ended, and now these major countries are looking forward to produce more nuclear weapons, and even openly so. That President Trump announced that the US will produce more nuclear weapons, and of course this will prompt other countries to do the same. This will make the world a much less safer place to be in, Pia, and it will prompt other countries to develop nuclear weapons, countries that can, unfortunately.
Indeed. I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking some other crucial information. We're now learning that the Taliban spokesperson has stated that peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have collapsed, although ceasefire along their shared border remains in effect. Zabiullah Mujahid has stated that negotiations failed after Islamabad demanded Afghanistan to take responsibility for Pakistan's internal security, a demand that Kabul has called beyond its capacity. Meanwhile, Pakistani Defence Minister Khwaja Mohammad Asif has earlier stated that the Istanbul talks aimed at preventing renewed border clashes, and these had failed. He noted that the ceasefire would hold as long as no attacks came from Afghan territory. There was a brief exchange of fire between Afghan and Pakistani troops on Thursday, which came as negotiations had resumed in Istanbul. Afghan forces had in fact put out a statement that 5 civilians had lost their lives. In fact, last month when the hostilities escalated along the 2,600 long border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, dozens have been killed. It of course marks the worst violence since the Taliban returned to power in 2021. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Mohammad Osman. Interesting updates coming in because there were murmurs that Kabul was seeking 3 guarantees from Pakistan. Kabul sought that Pakistan would not violate Afghanistan airspace, would prevent US drones from operating through its territory, and would ensure that ISIS-linked groups were not allowed to use Pakistani soil to strike Afghanistan. On the other hand, Afghanistan had reiterated its position that it would not allow anyone to use its soil to attack Pakistan. In light of this, what could have been some of the considerations for both sides not seeing eye to eye? Is it just a matter between the two countries, or is there a larger game at play?
I think there's a much larger geopolitical dimension to these tensions between Afghanistan and Pakistan, Pia, because the sticking points that both countries are discussing right now are nothing new. The Taliban itself is a Pakistani creation, as you might very well know. And
yes,
even the main sponsor of Islamic fundamentalism in Afghanistan historically is Pakistan, unfortunately, and also the problematic relationship as of late between the Afghan Taliban regime and the government of Pakistan over the support Afghanistan grants to the Pakistani Taliban, the TPP, the Tehrik-e-Taliban, is nothing new. This is not news. I believe that the actual cause behind this flare-up between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and why Pakistan has decided to take a much more violent approach to how it deals with Afghanistan, is Afghanistan's choice to lead an independent foreign policy and actually expand its scope of partnerships. We have seen the Taliban government engage very positively with countries like China and Russia. Both are friends of Pakistan, but however, Pakistan was not very happy with that, but they could swallow that. But it wasn't a coincidence that the flare-up took place and the clashes actually broke out when the Afghan foreign minister was visiting New Delhi.
yes,
And when India decided to open an embassy in Kabul. So to Pakistan, this was a crossing of a red line, because historically, before the collapse of the Afghan state and its before it descended into the rule of Islamic fundamentalists for the past decades, Afghanistan was a very strong ally of India historically. And also, Afghanistan always coordinated its policies with India to contain Pakistan one way or the other. So Pakistan is really concerned that Afghanistan, especially in light of Operation Sindoor and the latest clashes between India and Pakistan, that they might reform some sort of partnership or alliance once more that would leave Pakistan strategically surrounded one way or the other. So I believe that these clashes basically was Pakistan sending a message to the Afghans that if you try to do that, we're going to go to war. We're not going to let that happen. Khawaja Asif, the Pakistani Minister of Defense, a very entertaining official, I would give him that, he threatened the Afghans that he will send them back to the caves. This is the words that he just said. So it's rather really ironic, Pia, to see Pakistan now reaping what they sowed. Basically, the Taliban and the entire phenomena of Deobandi Islamic extremism inside Afghanistan was sponsored by Pakistan for decades. However, now Pakistan is suffering from that in so many ways.
Indeed, a quick follow-up to that. The Afghans did mention about the Americans, their concerns with the Americans. We've seen that in the aftermath, as you've pointed out, of Operation Sindoor, there's been a sort of pivot in the American position as far as Pakistan is concerned. In fact, one of their key leaders of the CENTCOM, General Kurilla, was seen visiting Asim Munir just a few months back as well. Given Afghanistan's geopolitical and geographic importance, what plan does the United States have? How does Pakistan sort of figure into that? US is of course eyeing the Bagram Air Base, and how does China also fit in? Because we do know that both on one hand, yes, China is investing in Pakistan as far as CPEC is concerned, but Afghanistan is also party to the BRI.
Exactly. Afghanistan is very important to China as much as it is as much as Pakistan. And as you just said, General Munir, basically the de facto leader of Pakistan, has been pushing his country, pivoting once again towards the United States after they were growing closer and closer to China. And even Pakistan and many experts attribute Pakistan's relatively good performance, some would say, during the latest confrontation with India to Chinese support. But now the Pakistan seems to be giving all the credit over everything to the Americans. They nominated the President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize, and they don't seem to be very committed at the moment, at least overtly, to their partnership with China. And at the same time, India has had its sheer disagreements with the United States over the issue of tariffs, over sanctions on Russia and on Russian oil, and also Pakistan and India, India and China are in a process of reconciliation. So Pakistan is basically feeling left out in this calculus. And Pakistan, it's no secret that Pakistan has always provided a platform for the Americans to target Islamic militants inside Afghanistan, even after the Americans withdrew from Afghanistan in 2021. And now it seems the Pakistanis are trying to reestablish their partnership with the Americans once more, maybe move a bit further, while not abandoning the Chinese, but moving a bit further from them, especially that the rapprochement between China and India at the moment will not make China a strategic counterweight to India as it used to be. And of course, it's no secret that India outmatches Pakistan in every aspect, militarily and economically. So they always need an ally to support them in any future confrontation with India. And they also need to keep Pakistan subjugated to, keep Afghanistan subjugated to Pakistani influence, so that in case of any future confrontation with India, which is very probable, by the way, Afghanistan would not be a thorn in Pakistan's back.
Absolutely. With that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis with all of us over here. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Philippine Senator Ronald De La Rosa, who is the former police chief who led the controversial war on drugs under President Rodrigo Duterte. De La Rosa, who has held a key role in implementing Duterte's anti-narcotics campaign, has been accused of complicity in the deaths of thousands of suspected drug users and peddlers during the operation, which has drawn international condemnation for alleged human rights violations. The former president, Duterte, who held office from 2016 to 2022, was arrested and taken to The Hague in March under an ICC warrant linking him to the same murders. Now, ICC's actions have marked a significant step in pursuing accountability for the violence that occurred during the highly controversial anti-drug campaign in Philippines. More news coming in, this time from Tanzania. We're now learning that Tanzania has moved to arrest senior opposition figures held responsible for deadly protests during last week's presidential and parliamentary elections. The main opposition party, Chadema, and some human rights activists have stated that security forces killed more than 1,000 people, and the government has called those numbers exaggerated without offering its own statistics. Meanwhile, the Tanzanian police has listed 10 people who are wanted in connection with their investigation of the unrest, which came a day after prosecutors charged 145 people with treason. The police, meanwhile, has stated that in collaboration with other defense and security agencies, they are continuing a serious manhunt to find all who had planned, coordinated and executed these demonstrations. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.